Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
And greetings. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, I am so happy to have on board as our guest Dr. Sidney Kurn. Dr. Kurn completed his PhD in physics at UCLA and his degree as a medical doctor at Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York. He is a specialist in neurology and has a private practice in Santa Rosa, California. Dr. Kurn also studied acupuncture through a training program at UCLA and then studied herbal medicine in Sonoma County, where he opened an herbal pharmacy. He is the co-author of the book Herbs and Nutrients for Neurological Disorders that he wrote with his co-author, Sheryl Shook PhD. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Kurn.
Thank you, Ellen.
Well, let's go back in time, because apparently you've had a long and winding road. And what made you go into physics initially?
Well, I remember, I grew up in Tucson. I was interviewed, I think it was on a radio, and there was a bunch of kids, and I was 7 or 8. And they asked me what I wanted to be, and I said I wanted to be a physicist. They looked at me, and I don't know. I had always wanted to be a physicist, and then I ended up going to grad school at UCLA, and you had mentioned I got a PhD. I kind of wish I did. I actually got a master's.
Okay.
And then I started working on a doctorate in cosmology, and I realized I needed to maybe connect with people more. I wanted to do something that would be more directly helpful to people, but I wasn't sure. And then I took a leave. I got a job at MD Anderson Hospital, which is a cancer hospital in Houston. And one day I had lunch with 3 other guys, and one was a doctor. And he was a really nice guy, and I said to myself, well, he's a nice guy, maybe I'll be a doctor. So nobody in my family had ever been a doctor. And so that's how I got into medicine.
Well, I was interested because there's this television special series called Genius, which is all about different people who are in physics, particularly Einstein. And it was really interesting to watch that process. And going from physics to medicine, I think, is fascinating because actually, especially as you move forward in your bio to becoming involved in Eastern practices such as acupuncture, there really is a connection between what we might call the quantum field and the body, which is very often not recognized in mainstream medicine.
Right. As a matter of fact, when in my neurology residency at USC LA County, I ended up writing a paper on a quantum mechanical theory of brain function. I didn't get too far, although I was invited to present it at Caltech, but at the time I felt a little intimidated, so I never presented my theory. But medical science, when I went to medical school, I found the science to be sort of very Newtonian. There was nothing about modern physics in it. But nowadays, quantum mechanics actually is used quite a bit, particularly in explaining how nerves function, because the channels for ions to go in and out to make the electricity go down the nerve, these channels obey quantum mechanical principles. I don't think they've applied quantum mechanics yet to larger regions of the brain, which is what I tried to do many, many years ago. But Yeah, I think we're getting there.
Well, now you brought in your other specialty, of course, after becoming a medical doctor, then you specialized in neurology.
Yeah, I actually I had gotten a residency in ophthalmology in Ohio, but I did my internship in California, and my wife's family lived there, and I decided I didn't want to leave California. And so at the last minute, I looked around for a residency, and I thought that neurology, particularly with the electrical aspects and the connectivity and so on, I thought that would be interesting. And Freud, who actually was a neurologist who became a psychiatrist, I was thinking about him. And so one night, actually I was taking a bath, I decided, well, I think I'll try to get into neurology. And it was actually very easy at the time because CAT scans were just coming in, and this was long before MRI. And so neurology was mainly a diagnostic specialty. There wasn't a lot therapeutically one could do. And so there wasn't a lot of medical school graduates that were interested in neurology. So I was able to get a neurology residency at LA County, and I've enjoyed it. But I've always had an interest in Eastern philosophy, and so after practicing for 10, 15 years, I decided I needed more in my armamentarium, so to speak, to help patients. And UCLA has a program for physicians, and so it was enough to get me started. I can't say that it's equivalent of the 3-year program for licensed acupuncturists, but I was able to take some other courses, and then I found it worked, particularly for neuropathy. There wasn't a lot at that time that was available for neuropathy. That we used antidepressants like amitriptyline. We used anticonvulsants like Tegretol.
I remember the Tegretol and seeing many patients with adverse effects due to it as well.
Yeah, Tegretol, for some things, postherpetic neuralgia, tic douloureux, so on, it's can be, at least in the old days, it was very effective. Now we have Lamictal, we have anticonvulsants with less side effects. But in any case, I found that the acupuncture worked.
Well,
neuropathy.
That is so good to hear. 1 minute, Dr. Kurn. I just want to reintroduce you and remind our listeners that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, and my guest today is Dr. Sidney Kurn, co-author of the book, Herbs and Nutrients for Neurological Disorders. And of course, Dr. Kurn, neurological disorders today are, a big news. We're talking about Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stroke, multiple sclerosis, migraines, and seizures. So it's really wide-ranging at this point.
Yeah, it's very wide-ranging, and particularly the degenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, since the baby boomers are getting older. We have a much larger percentage of the population that's older. Dementing disorders is becoming a big issue. We're getting more and more memory units being built, and unfortunately, we really haven't found any successful treatments for Alzheimer's disease.
And what about the cause? Do you feel that we are actually seeing more people with Alzheimer's, or just that we're doing better bookkeeping?
Well, I think that the reason we're seeing more people is because there's more older people. And so I think that as a fraction of the population, we're getting more Alzheimer's disease because the epidemiology of the population is changing.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing...
That's how I would look at it.
It's possible. I always feel like possibly it's also due to the increased toxicity and, neurological interference patterns that can be going on, especially when we look at the gut-brain connection and the dysbiosis with whole new strains of very noxious bacterial colonies. So I think that could be part of it as well.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, the biome of the gut or the biome of the lung or other regions of the body, it's really interesting. In the gut, I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know. But
we're sharing with the listeners, Doctor, of course.
That's right. Hi out there. Anyways, the gut has 2 pounds of bacteria, and it turns out that the bacteria in the gut have all the same receptors that the nerve cells in the brain have, and the bacteria also secrete the same neurotransmitters that the nerve cells in the brain transmit, and they have the same receptors. So, and these neurotransmitters actually get systemically absorbed, and so the old idea of thinking with your gut is actually literal now, because the bacteria, they form colonies, they talk to each other, and it turns out they're talking to the body, and it's medicine, and it's gone mainstream to such a degree that they're actually doing fecal transplants, like for multiple sclerosis and probably other disorders, because, as you've pointed out, abnormalities in your gut bacteria or the microbiome of your gut can certainly aggravate diseases. The other thing that you mentioned, the toxicity of the planet is certainly an issue, actually, my wife asked me recently about aluminum. When I was investigating aluminum foil, when I was investigating it 20 or 30 years ago, initially it was thought that aluminum might be playing a role in Alzheimer's disease, but then and they looked at different cities with different levels of aluminum in the city water supply, and the medical researchers decided that it was an artifact, that actually aluminum was not a factor. But I think that's being revisited, and directly applying aluminum to nerve cell cultures can cause some of the pathological findings in Alzheimer's disease. And if you examine the blood of an average person, you'll find up to 200 to 300 residues of pharmaceuticals in their blood, not the whole molecule, but parts of the molecule. And you'll also find DDT. Studies have been done on Alzheimer patients. They have a much higher incidence of DDT in their blood and in their fatty tissues and other herbicides and pesticides.
Well, that is fascinating. And we're going to take just a little break here right now. We're going to come back to you shortly. And I'd like to tell you, listeners, you're listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen live or online at ncc.edu/WHPC. For more information on today's guest or topic, email whpc@ncc.edu. Stay tuned. Herbally Yours will be right back.
Hi. I found a toy dinosaur over on the playground by Smith Street. It had this phone number on it, and, I just wanted to make sure the dinosaur made it back to its little owner.
Yeah. Hi. I think I found your kid's stuffed animal near the swing set. Just want to call. I'm sure she misses it.
I know my son gets super attached to the smallest things, even a fire truck, and I'd be happy to drop it off. The toy was a little muddy, so I cleaned it up, and it's good to go whenever you're around.
When I found the little sippy cup, I just had to give you a call. It's for a kid,
We'd do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger and give all of our kids the meals they need to grow. Learn how at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
And welcome back. here we are at Herbally Yours, and here we are with our wonderful guest,